What's up, you guys? I'm here with a new video today. We're here to do the next episode of how to beat this deck, and we are doing it on Trickstars. We're doing it on Trickstars because I think a lot of people have forgotten about this deck. People think, oh, it hasn't been doing too much this past format, but then you play against it at regionals or YCS, and you get burned to death, and you sit there scratching your head, and you're wondering, how the hell did this just happen? How did I just lose to a bunch of like little lolly girls and they just burned me to death? How did this happen? And I probably lost to Scapegoat too. How did this happen in 2018 that I'm losing to lollies and goats? I don't get it. But we're here to talk about this deck just so that you guys will know how to beat this deck. I'll honestly say out of all the decks that will be featured here on this series, this one is pretty straightforward because Trickstars have one real weakness that I feel not a lot of decks in the format do, and I'm not knocking the deck at all. I think the deck is really cool, to be honest. I think that the deck, does what it does best. My homie Michael Stade, of course, Bling Blow, Bling Burn, whatever you want to call it. Him and Joe Bogley have done wonders with the deck. My friend Ken Kuo almost won the UDS with the deck, getting second. The deck definitely has its place in the meta. It's definitely in the top 5, I would say. Not sure like how high we'd put it on the ranking tree, but it's definitely up there, so that's why we're going to cover it. We're going to start with the basics for those of you that aren't familiar with the deck. The deck basically revolves around 3 main monsters. There's Candina. Candina is your beat stick, the 1800. It is able to, it's your Stratos. It searches what you need. And it also will burn your opponent for 200 points every time they use a spell or trap. So that's how you get the burn damage in with this card. The next card, of course, is Licorice, whatever you want to call it. This one you just reveal in hand. You special it, return one of the Trickstar monsters to hand that you targeted. And then this one also has a burn effect that your opponent will take 200 each time a card is added to their hand. So like whenever they draw a card, they're going to take 200. They activate a spell with Candina, they're going to take 200. And you guys see like where the burn adds up. And then of course there's Lilybell, and Lilybell is what's referred to as the garnet, the brick. You actually do not want to draw this card because its effect is when it's added to hand, except by drawing it you can special it, so that's pretty cool. So you guys know if you see in your opening hand this sucks, you can search it with Light Stage, you can search it with Candina, you can use those effects and then just get it out. You just really don't want to draw this card. This is the brick. Its effect is pretty cool though. It can attack directly, and when it inflicts battle damage, you target one Trickstar in your graveyard and you add it to your hand. So it's basically how you recycle your monsters. But to be honest, you guys, those are the 3 main monsters that Trickstars play. They don't really play any other Trickstar monsters. I'm not as super familiar with the deck, but all I've ever seen when playing against this deck is those monsters. They also are known to play support cards like Eater of Millions. I haven't really seen anything else. I know they can side deck Thunder King and whatnot. Thunder King is actually one of the cards that's actually going to be on how to beat this deck because it's actually one of the best cards against them. Spoiler alert. But yeah, so definitely those are the main ones. Then, of course, they have their main spell card, their Light Stage. You guys already know, you activate it, you add a Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand. It also has another ability to where it can freeze a back row till the end phase, and at the end phase, your opponent must activate it, or they have to send it to the grave. That's actually pretty cool because you are able to just make your opponent you completely lose back row. Like, you freeze it, kind of like the old Fire Fist spell card, Gaioku, I believe was the name, that froze a back row, except this one, if your opponent doesn't use it, they lose it. Pretty cool. And then every time Trickstar monster on the field uses this effect to burn your opponent, they take 200 more. So you guys can see, as I've mentioned, with all these monsters on the field, with the Light Stage on the field, your opponent's going to be taking burn damage every time they draw a card, every time they activate anything. So it really adds up, and that's where they burn you to death, and there's nothing you can really do about it. So there's that. Then, of course, the most infamous card in the deck, their Trickstar Reincarnation, which is absolutely insane. Banish your opponent's entire hand, then they draw the same amount. You can banish this card from the graveyard and special summon a Trickstar from grave. They do this when you're trying to kill them, and this is how they stay alive. One thing that's crazy is that the Joel Reincarnation thing, you guys already know. They activate Reincarnation, Joel and Lockbird, you lose everything, and it sucks. Trust me, it sucks when that happens. But yeah, so just a known thing. Trickstar Reincarnation, absolutely nuts. I don't know how that card is still at 3. It's what makes the deck just really have a cheesy way to win, besides the burn, but it's pretty crazy. So yeah, so that's basically the breakdown of this deck. Now, I basically explained, they just have their monsters, they set up, they, burn you to death, and, you're wondering, okay, well, what's so scary about about that. Trust me, guys, the burn damage adds up real quick. Not only that, they do play cards like Scapegoat and, like I already mentioned, Eater of Millions. And this is how they can make Borreload Dragon. They can go into their links, and they can, they can do much more than just summoning the little lolly girls, as I like to call them. So outside of that, they do have other support cards that do things, and of course, like I said, they play a ton of hand traps, and Joel Reincarnation is insane. It's one of the most unfair things I've seen in the game in a long time, so just be on the lookout for that. Now, how do we beat this deck? It's really not as hard as you guys think. I'm going to start with the main weakness that Trickstars have. If you guys have looked at the 3 monsters, they are weak. They cannot deal with big monsters, and that is their biggest flaw. Unless they go into the extra deck, Trickstars cannot deal with big monsters. When I first played against Trickstars, it was actually at a regionals in San Jose, and I was, of course, playing 60-card Lightsworn, and we were in Game 3. I had won Game 1. I grassed him. Game 2, he, burned me to death. He had the perfect hand, just burned me to death, so we went to Game 3. And in Game 3, I won the game because I just sat on a Giant Rex and a Snow. They are not able to get around anything above 1800 without going into the extra deck, and that's pretty crazy. So that alone can be your win condition a lot of times. I know it sounds really basic and really weird, but a lot of times that's all it takes is a big monster. I know that's pretty crazy, but that's what it is. So that is one of their biggest flaws, and that's actually how you kind of beat the deck. You don't feed into their burn is another thing. When I played against them, I was scared of Reincarnation the entire time. I'm not even going to lie. I did everything in my power to play around Reincarnation, and I actually did not get reincarnated that game. Again, another match at Atlanta when I did play against Trickstars. I got reincarnated twice, but I had Shiranui Spirit Master in my hand because I was broken, and I popped a card, and other things happened, but the fact that I played around Reincarnation, you do that by setting cards. It's the best way to do it. If you have no hand, they can't reincarnate you. So remember that. If you have the ability to set your hand, do it once you know you're playing against this deck, because they won't be able to activate Reincarnation outside of its grave effect if they already activated and have it in the grave to begin with. So remember that. That's another way to play around the deck and beat it, because Reincarnation is absolutely insane. You lose your whole hand. You do draw a new hand, but it can completely make or break your game. So be sure to be on the lookout how you play against this deck, and definitely try to play around Reincarnation. Now, other ways to beat this deck. We're going to go with some basic monsters that beat this deck. Chaos Hunter. Chaos Hunter has seen a lot of play recently. You'll see it in a lot of top cut decks. Right now in this current format, these couple regionals, I have seen it in a couple deck lists in the side deck, but it hasn't seen as much play as it did last format when Trickstars were really up there as probably the second best deck. The thing about Chaos Hunter is it's versatile against other decks too. It's really good against ABC, and it's good against it's okay against ABC. For those of you that know, the out to Chaos Hunter actually is Cleafort Genius. When we do an episode on ABC, we'll talk about that, but just for people who are wondering, Chaos Hunter, you may not actually want to use it against ABC, but it's amazing against Trickstars. You summon it, can't really get around it, they can't banish any cards, so Reincarnation doesn't work. None of their cards really work. It's a 2500 beater. Good luck, Trickstar. Honestly, that's the honest truth. Chaos Hunter is absolutely insane against that deck. Another card that's really cheesy, and I have heard people using it because it actually shuts off what Trickstars do to steal wins from you, and that is Performage Trapeze Magician. This card literally makes it to where any burn damage, you just gain it. So basically, the burn damage doesn't do anything to you, so all they're playing with is vanilla monsters. So that's the thing. It's a really cheesy card, and I know it takes 2 spellcasters, but if you have the ability to make it, it's like an auto win against them. So just saying, for Pendulum Magician players or any players that can play Trapeze Magician, that card is like game against them. Just saying. I just wanted to throw it in there just because I thought it was kind of funny. Other cards that beat them, I did mention Thunder King. Now, Thunder King is amazing. Thunder King now at 3 is absolutely insane. It's actually one of the best cards to side in the mirror match. I know they side it because they actually cannot get around big monsters, anything over 1800. Well, Thunder King is 1900, and also makes it to where a lot of their cards don't work. The Light Stage does not work. Candina does not work. It's pretty insane. So Thunder King, definitely one of the best outs, believe it or not only in the mirror match, but just in general, depending on what type of deck you are playing, and can support Thunder King Ryo. But Ryo back at 3, we're going to spell issues for Trickstar players. Other cards. So we're going to talk about hand traps. As I do in every how to beat this deck episode, I talk about hand traps interaction against this deck. We're going to start with, of course, Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is pretty good. Ash Blossom shuts down the Light Stage, it shuts down the Candina, and a lot of times, if you are able to do that, that their turn kind of ends. They don't really have that many plays. They do play traps, so remember that. They do play real traps like Warning, Judgment, Strike. They do play real traps like that in addition to the Reincarnations, but outside of that, you're able to, just play against their main monsters and their spell card, and Ash is great. Ash just, fully negates the light stage, and it negates the Candina, so that's great, because Candina's normal summon. It's not when it's special summons, when it's normal summon, so if you stop it right off the bat, they don't get a plus, and their engine slows down. A lot of times they can't continue playing, so Ash is great. Ogre, absolute crap. I'm not even going to show Ogre on here. Ogre sucks against his deck. Don't play Ogre. End of story. Ogre sucks. Winter Cherry sucks. Don't play it. Their extra deck isn't real. I'm just going to be straight up blunt. Those two hand traps, they're garbage. Now, Veiler. Veiler's interesting. Veiler is, of course, seeing a lot more play. It's not terrible against them. It does hit Candina. It does, and I mean, that is kind of relevant. So, believe it or not, Veiler is not the best card against them, but it's not the absolute terrible worst like Ghost Ogre. So, Veiler's okay. Veiler the Candina, pretty good. So we'll put Veiler in there. But then, of course, probably the best hand trap against them, in addition to Ash, is going to be Joel and Lockbird. Joel and Lockbird, because not only do they use it to, just completely cheese a win out of you, but their deck does a lot of searching. And you can do things as simple as when they go light stage to search Candina, you can drop Joel and Lockbird. Then they can't summon the Candina. Or they can, but they just won't get a plus out of it. So a lot of times they just will play light stage to some back row and pass. So a lot of times you have free range to just kind of do what you want to do and just fight through the back row. And you guys already know how to pull apart back row in Yu-Gi-Oh! So that can be pretty simple. So Joel and Lockbird is actually a really good card against them. I remember I was playing 3 Joel and Lockbird because we were still in Spiral format when I played Trickstars, and I literally drolled him 3 times. I drew all 3 of my Joel and Lockbirds, and I drolled him 3 times, and that alone won me that game, I can tell you right now, before I got my beat sticks out and just was beating down the lollies one at a time. So definitely Joel and Lockbird is an amazing card against them. And just overall, in general, like, there's not too much to talk about. They do suffer from, like I said, their number one flaw is they're weak, and they can go into the extra deck. Now, the way they do this, of course, is through Scapegoat. Now, playing around Scapegoat is kind of weird because a lot of times it's not going to happen as much. A lot of times they'll have maybe one monster, like Candina or Lycris, depending on how they played it, and they'll have a set goat, they'll activate goat, and then they'll start doing their link things. There's not a lot of things you can do against that, but you guys already know if they make a Boro load, you do your best to make your own Boro load and take their Boro load or out the Boro load. Not the easiest thing to do, but it is doable. But I'm just saying they do have the ability to go into the extra deck, go into links through Scapegoat. If you took away Scapegoat, they wouldn't have the ability to do that, but it is a defensive card. So we already know Scapegoat's been seeing a lot of play in a lot of decks, so the ability to just play around it is is just crucial. And a lot of times, you just got to punch over the tokens. A lot of times you just got to see what they make through their links and just, find your best out to basically whatever they play with Scapegoat. So, yeah. But overall, that's pretty much it for this episode. Like I said, it's pretty simple, but I felt that it needed to be addressed because it's definitely in the top meta decks. And a lot of people, you will lose to this deck if you aren't well prepared. And I feel that the whole point of this series is to prepare you to play against the meta. We are a competitive channel here, so we do go to these events and whatnot, and we have played against these decks, actually going to YCS Salt Lake. So definitely, if you guys are going, let me know. And let me know what you guys think. This episode, like I said, very simple, how to beat Trickstars. There's multiple ways to beat them, just depends on what your deck does best, your best strategy against them, and I feel that these episodes will definitely prepare you for when you play against these decks at future tournaments. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know the next episode you guys would like to see. Of course, I'll be putting a poll up in the community tab for other decks that we'll talk about. We're in a very open format, but I never want to forget Trickstars because people have lost to them, and the burn damage can be really annoying, and you just always want to be prepared for when you play against a deck that has in a sense, people think no win condition, but they can burn you to death, and they can just link you to death, and you'd be surprised. They can cheese wins from you when you thought you had the game in full control. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Let me know the next one you want to see. Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.